Hey, welcome back, Stacey.
Hi, Britt. So glad to be here for another fun conversation.
So we're back with Stacey Kasianchuk, and I am going to give you Stacey's background because it was cut off from the last time we talked, and she has an incredible background. So Stacey is a registered dietitian nutritionist, an exercise physiologist. She is the Senior Director of Dietitians and Lifestyle Care at Genève. She is adjunct faculty at Oregon State University, and she is the co-owner of the Novo Collective Women's Health Group. That's a lot. I don't know how you do it all, and you have kids and a husband. So
I like to stay busy, but it's all. I
that's
think the thing is I enjoy it all, and it's been something that I have wanted to be a part of, and has grown as being a part of just a part of my life.
Well, that is amazing. Thank you for saying that because I think when you enjoy what you do, it
Mhm.
comes more easily and the work that you do is so vital and necessary and that's just a perfect segue into why I wanted to have you on today and it's because you are that person who is sitting at that intersection of nutrition science, movement and women's health.
Mhm.
Not a lot of people can say that. So today I'm super excited to have you on. We're going to talk about supplements and what's worth buying, what might be worth skipping, and very importantly, why there is this industry, a huge industry, $69 billion industry
It's money.
that profits from making it hard to figure out what to put in your body. So, the last time we talked in our first video with Stacey, we talked about what a midlife female body actually needs. And the answer to that turned out to be simpler than I expected. But knowing what you need and feeling immune to that industry pressure telling you otherwise, that's a really different thing.
Mhm.
So we're going to break that down. We're going to talk about the supplements, talk about that impulse. Why is it so strong to supplement, to put a pill in our body? What trends are out there? What's holding up? And what it means that that entire economy, which is really driven by influencers and including registered dietitian nutritionist
Mhm.
influencers, it's about that profit to keep women anxious about problems that they may not have. So that's where we're going to go. Sound good?
Sounds
I
great.
know you have thoughts on all
Yes.
of this. Okay. So I'll tee up this first question. So after we talked, I felt like something had kind of cracked open for me.
Mhm.
You giving permission that you know what your body needs. You don't need to
Mhm.
have a protocol. But that is not how I lived for most of my
Mhm.
adult life. And I will be honest, I have done a lot of woo woo stuff.
Mhm.
I've done the vitamin C drips. I have bought massive supplement stacks because somebody told me that I had an adrenal blowout and
Mhm.
needed to buy things to repair that blowout. I've bought countless greens and protein powders and creatine. Creatine's the latest thing that I'm
Mhm.
experimenting with. I can't tell you what evidence is behind any of that.
Mhm.
Somebody said you should take this, or my doctor told me I should take something. So that's concerning to me. And then I've spent probably thousands of dollars over the years. And I don't think that I'm unusual in this. I think
Mhm.
most of the women that I know have some version of that supplement stack sitting on the
Mhm.
shelf. So let's start with clinically
Mhm.
what is driving that impulse to buy this, to put this in our bodies? And why does the simple action of eating whole foods and listening to our bodies feel like it's not enough, even when
Yeah.
we talked about it really being enough?
Yeah. Really great. Easy questions. Fred, no, I'm not kidding there. This is a really big topic, and I think it's getting more and more. I mean, supplements have been around for years and years, and I think this type of, even this type of medicine, right? If we think of the medicine men and women who would provide different tinctures or things historically, like this
Mhm.
type of practice is not necessarily new. What's new is how it's getting to people, and certainly the advent of social media, and as we're learning the impacts on our brains and how we think, and the algorithm aspects and the AI aspects to that are like the new part to all of this that are intensifying that messaging. But I think if we're thinking about women's health specifically, and as you mentioned, this idea that we're not enough, we're not doing enough, we aren't enough, where we're just always behind. And so I think that fear of being behind, and a lot of this can be fear, and I want to use fear in a maybe a not fearful way. I mean, sometimes it is true scarcity mindset, which can strike us to think we need to buy all these things for with good intention. Sometimes it is fear of disease, fear of and especially fear of aging, right? Fear of being left behind. I think, and all of these get layered, especially in the peri to postmenopause transition when there is, and I wish this was talked about more, but there's a grief, there's loss happening
Mhm.
there. And so if you're feeling a sense of grief and you are feeling a sense of loss and overwhelm, and someone tells you, I have something to help you, take this, like, you're in a vulnerable state, you're more likely to do that. And to your point on, a large portion of the population buying these supplements are women, because we are set up for a variety of reasons, which could be a whole other podcast, to be vulnerable
Mhm.
and targeted in that way. Um, you have more marketing experience than I do. People aside, I think target marketing to vulnerable individuals seems easier, seems
Well,
advantageous.
I mean, it's the cornerstone of marketing. So when I was the new marketing person working in ad agencies in my 20s, there is a concept called FUD, FUD, which is fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And as we would create briefs and creative campaigns, we would look for ways to drive those themes. And
Mm-hmm.
what was the research behind what we were selling that indicated there was some fear, uncertainty, or doubt around a product or service. So
Yeah.
menopause, perimenopause hits on all of those. And to your
Yep.
point, and the grief, I think that's really fascinating, which I don't think a lot about. And I don't think we've talked about that. And we don't
Mm-hmm.
really have systems to
Yeah.
process that.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I think, spot on that. I think there's, when there's a business capitalism drive for something, they may not be thinking about the potential consequences. And so I actually think a lot of intentions, if we look at of supplement companies and people that market them, initially are to help people, or they've been helped. They have a story like, I've been helped, I want to help others. So it's altruistic at its root, but
Mm.
it starts to snowball a little bit. And when money gets in the weeds, it complicates things.
Okay, so should we talk about glucose goddess here?
Yes.
Because so you say the word snowball. Okay,
Mhm.
so I'm writing a follow-up article to this, and I have been really fascinated by influencer culture and
Mhm.
menopause influencers. And when we worked together, we talked a lot about some of the popular influencers out there. So in thinking about this, I went down this rabbit hole around glucose monitoring. And it's kind of this perfect case study for this conversation because
Mhm.
it has a tidy package to it. So that many of you have probably heard of glucose goddess. So she is a woman, a biochemist, a former program manager at the company 23andMe. Her name is Jessie Inchauspy, and she created this channel on Instagram in 2019 where she started documenting her early work around her own glucose monitoring. And she was given one of these glucose monitors that goes on your arm. And she was given one of those very early on before that they were approved by the FDA for over the counter usage. I think as part of her job at 23andMe. And so she started just posting charts about what your glucose, how it spikes and what happens to it when you eat certain foods. So this all stayed pretty niche for a couple of years until other creators started going viral with their videos about glucose monitoring. And that started happening on TikTok around 2022. And you may have seen there's a guy who posted a very viral video about what his glucose spike looked like after he ate a Chick-fil-A sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll probably post to a couple of these. I'll post the links to these because they're really pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, so millions of people are seeing this. 2019 to 2022. Then last year, 2025, the FDA cleared the Dexcom Stello. Am I pronouncing that right? Is it Stello?
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Stello.
Stello.
So the FDA clears that for over-the-counter glucose monitoring, no prescription needed.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a device that's usually prescribed for diabetic people.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, what's interesting is, and where this is snowballing around the fear, uncertainty, and doubt is Glucose Goddess has a paid partnership with Dexcom, and that's Stello. So she promoted it when they launched the product to the general public. And in the past few years, she has developed her own line of supplements. She has a supplement for it's called Anti-Spike to help you with your glucose levels, and a new protein powder. So in about 5 years, one woman's personal experiment turned into this retail category, with her getting paid on both ends of it to promote the device and to build these products. So let's talk about that and glucose monitoring as one of the many trends that we're seeing influencers market right now. There's protein, fiber maxing, gut health. Okay, which ones hold up clinically and which are more about marketing?
I think there's, we talked about the protein and fiber last time, and I think, for pivoting to supplements, I do think those supplements have a place in addition to food. A protein supplement can definitely help some people. I always kind of use the rule of thumb of if you include a protein powder once per day or less, that's probably okay if that helps you reach your protein goals. It can be a convenient way to do it. Sometimes, if it is a scenario where you just add water, it can help people to bridge gaps in meeting their protein needs, and maybe a helpful tool in addition to whole food options. Same thing on the fiber side. The difference with the fiber, I always remind people though, is because I find this one's the more of a clutch than the protein supplement. More and more people I think are like, yeah, I know I can't have protein supplement as my only protein, but can I have it sometimes? But I find on the fiber, more I hear, oh, I take a fiber supplement, I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
But a fiber supplement doesn't have any of the vitamins and minerals of all the fruits or vegetables or grains that a fiber food that has. And what we have to remember is that when we look at the benefits of fiber, yes, we're studying fiber, but when we look at whole food options, which is what a lot of studies do, we can't even capture all of the benefits of those foods, but we know there's other benefits to those food, beneficial food chemicals, I'll call them, like natural chemicals in the food, phytochemicals in plants. And that is never going to be in a fiber supplement. But a fiber supplement can be helpful, especially if someone, has digestion challenges and maybe can't handle high fiber foods. A fiber supplement may be more gentle, so it can be incorporated in. And there is evidence to support both of those, the protein and the fiber supplement, in conjunction with food.
Okay. There's a lot of other supplements for sleep support, for anxiety, like some of the menopause brands have like omega-3s or multivitamins formulated just for menopausal women. Any thoughts on any of those?
On the sleep support and doubles as an anxiety support, I do like magnesium glycinate or threonate. I like them also because they are, and again, research to support benefits for like a calming effect. So that can help your sleep if you're going to sleep feeling anxious or ramped up. Taking magnesium before bed, say 30 to 60 minutes before, can help to bring more of a calm as you're going to sleep. It's not a sedative. It's not going to have an ambient or even a melatonin like effect, but it
Mm,
can have that calming effect for some people. And we do know with more or less, or how even plants, how they're farmed now, the soil has less magnesium. So
mm,
unless you're eating a lot of nuts and a lot of beans and a lot of fruits and vegetables from highly enriched soil, it's possible that you're not getting
mm,
adequate magnesium.
mm,
And so it's one that's more likely to be suboptimal intake. And so a supplement can be helpful there.
okay. I'm glad I asked about that. I had not ever heard that about magnesium.
Yeah, and that's with just our depletions of soils. Again, another podcast topic. But we are that's unfortunate reality. It doesn't negate the benefits of those fruits and vegetables, but we do see less mineral content in a lot of them.
Mm. Well, what do you make of that Dexcom Stello device? And are you seeing patients coming in with that on their own?
I am. I'm seeing more of them, and it's interesting. I'll completely be completely transparent. When these came out, when individuals without diabetes were starting to use the CGMs, I was like, "Oh, come on, right? Like, why are we doing this? Why are we overcomplicating things?" And I was more resistant. And I was most resistant though because I was seeing patients using them, being told by a doctor, use the CGM to lose weight, and given very little other information on it. And so that was frustrating to me as a dietitian because they would come to me and say, "Well, I have the CGM. Like, how do I lose weight using it?" And it was like, "Well, it's not that simple." I have come to, as I've learned more about them and utilize them, is that it can be an effective tool to teach and to help individuals
Mm,
understand their blood sugar response. And I do think that at the heart of it, if you look at the root of the glucose goddess, that's what she wanted to do. And she said she's an educator. She's a biochemist and a math major. She's an educator, and she wanted to educate people. And so I think that, again, that altruistic intention was there. And what I think can be helpful is for someone to understand their own blood sugar patterns and where they can see certain things happening, which is what she does a lot in her graphs.
yeah.
But I will say, coming back to our previous conversation, if you haven't listened to that, definitely go back and listen to it. But that is like another layer. So it doesn't replace the
Mm,
basic foundation.
mhm,
But if you have the basic where I have found CGM being most helpful is if you have the basic foundations pretty dialed, you're including fiber, you're including protein, you're fueling
mm,
your workouts, and either you have an out of range hemoglobin A1C, so a pre-diabetic hemoglobin A1C, and it's like not making sense, like, wonder what's going on here. This can be a way to say, hey, let's take a look at what your blood sugar is doing throughout the day to get more insight for where you personally may be experiencing these highs and lows that maybe we wouldn't expect, and where that's happening to then dial in further
mhm.
your approach.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. They do come at a cost.
Yeah. Mhm.
They're expensive, and I think you need to replace them every 15 days or so. One of them
You
is about $100.
Stello is two for $100 or $99, I think, and they're supposed to live. They're supposed to last for I think 14 days, and the glucose goddess says 15 days on her page. I will say through experience, and then going down through some Reddit pages and then some just reviews, that it's not uncommon for them to die sooner. And
Huh.
so usually Dexcom will replace it, but you do have to go through a process to get that done. I should have said this first. I have tried the Dexcom the actual Dexcom device. And then I also have tried the Stello, two of them for myself. And so that's been my experience with them. I will say the Stello is super easy. The app is excellent. It's
Yeah.
it's well done from a user standpoint.
That's smart. So the Dexcom device is the prescription and the Stello is the
Mm-hmm.
OTC. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, that's like, if you're going to do that continuously, you're looking at $100 a month
Yeah.
add to your health spend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, not inexpensive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So
well,
yeah, definitely not free.
Yeah. Okay, so that it's interesting. Thank you for pointing out Glucose Goddess and her approach to education.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I wanted to talk with you about is in maybe your work with patients and what you're seeing online. You've got people like Glucose Goddess, who is a biochemist. She's not a registered dietitian nutritionist. She's just done this out of a passion. There's also this separate world of RDN influencers. And how are your patients kind of coming to you with what they're learning on there? How are you maybe guiding them around what to trust? I know we talked about the qualifications of a dietitian last time and why that's important. So the bigger question here is, like, how does somebody like you, with your background and training and expertise in working in clinic with patients, compete against the same attention economy like Glucose Goddess? How's that showing up in your patient interactions?
Yeah, it is, it's a delicate balance too, because I think the other thing social media does, and I'm guilty of this too, like we start to feel attached and loyal to people we have never met in our
Right.
life. It is wild. And so when someone has an attachment to someone, you got to be careful if you want to establish relationship and rapport. So in those cases, usually it's definitely an exploration on, like, what have you learned? What have you found helpful? What hasn't been helpful? What questions do you still have? And the other thing I try to bring to all conversations, especially these conversations with patients, is admitted bias. I wish this is what I wish, like, everyone would do, that if we all recognize we're all biased and that's just part of life, and we all bring a different lens. So, Glucose Goddess brings her lens as a biochemist and an educator. So she's not going to have the same lens as I'm going to bring as a dietitian exercise physiologist. So that's what I bring to the patients to say, hey, okay, this is a lens this individual, I imagine, has in their information presented to you. Can I offer you my lens that is based off of being a dietitian and exercise physiology, which I will fully admit, having an understanding of physiology and how the body responds to exercise is how I see so many things in the world, which does cloud my vision in some ways. I will even say, a physician sees the body differently than I'm thinking about performance. They're thinking about curing disease, right? So there's all these different things, and that's a generalizing physicians for sure. So if you're a physician and that's not you, please don't take offense. But I think we have to recognize, the point is we have to recognize we're all coming from different places, and then it's entering that conversation with the patient and calling out risks to benefits, or when there could be harm. So if I see where there's harm, I think one of the then I will call that out and tell them why. If there's some things that you're kind of like, sure, try, the vinegar before meals, give it a shot. Like, literally, give a shot at it. Go ahead. And if it works for you, if you feel better and your hemoglobin A1C improves, awesome. If you're choking down vinegar before every meal and you feel miserable and you don't want to eat, well, maybe that's not the approach for you. So that's how the conversations typically go in that way.
Yeah, thank you for that. Like, that is such a useful way to think about it, the lens. That is really brilliant. And I would add to that what I would hope is that every woman could work with a dietitian. I know that that's not possible, and I know that the role that some of these influencers play is very important, because they are getting some information and they're getting access to new ways to think about these things. But I can't overstate how important it's been in my own life to work with an RDN. And exactly what you said, like you and your team always come into the conversations from a point of curiosity and trying to
Yeah.
understand who that patient is and what's going to work with them and
Yeah.
for them.
Yeah.
So that's something else. I think let's touch on that. So you've got patients coming into you and they may be taking a lot of supplements already, or they're not feeling well.
Mhm.
How do you start to counsel them on what to take or what to maybe stop taking?
Yeah, so definitely taking inventory of what they're currently taking. And it's fast. I mean, some people do have complete, like, just lists upon lists, and you are like, oh, okay. And when you ask them, like, what do you notice when you take this? What do you notice when you take that? Most of the times I don't know. And so then that's where I'll often come down to, okay, what are the ones that can be key to be taking? So a protein supplement, magnesium, omega-3s you mentioned, a vitamin D potentially, kind of the like core. And then depending on their nutrition intake, if they're really dialing in their nutrition, getting a variety of foods, they could take a multivitamin if they'd like, but they won't have to. If someone is not really struggling to get high quality nutrition in, or if they're on a GLP-1, I will recommend a multivitamin because there
Mm-hmm.
are likely more nutrition gaps that when we think of risk to benefit, it's a lower risk option to take. And I always talk about if you are going to take a supplement, you want it to be third party verified. That was another thing on the glucose goddess. I could not find any indication of third party verification for the supplement. So supplements are not regulated by the FDA. And so you and I could, hop after this call and decide what we want to make for our supplement, figure out where we want to source the ingredients, put it in a bottle, and like sell it at the end of your driveway. No one's going to come for us until someone gets hurt. And so you're really just trusting best intentions. I mean, any large business doesn't want to have a recall of their supplement they're selling, but that doesn't mean that they're practicing 100% quality or, practices and making them. Third party verification adds a layer of verification because they're paying extra for another company to test it. NSF is one company that does a lot of testing, Informed Choice, USP. And then you'll see there's independent third party testings as well. But if a supplement company isn't calling that out on their website, to me, I'm like, why? Like, why aren't you third
Yeah,
party testing and
they
saying,
don't
hey,
have it.
we had an independent person or company look at this?
Is that a logo that appears on the bottle?
It's either a logo that appears on the bottle if it's one of the bigger ones, bigger companies. Otherwise, sometimes companies will just say we do third party testing. You can email us for the results. You can, they're fairly transparent about it.
Okay. I think that's really important to look for. And if look on their websites too,
Yeah.
because the good ones have that.
Mhm.
Okay. So talk a bit about evidence and which supplements have genuine evidence behind them.
So when it depends on what we're looking for. So I'll start with a basic one, vitamin D. If you have low vitamin D, which I recommend you get a blood lab because I think it's best to know your own individual vitamin D level because that could tell you whether you need to do like a 2000 IU maintenance dose, or if you're way below, we want to be a little bit more aggressive in getting that up there. You might need 5,000, 10,000, or a prescription dose. But that one is very straightforward. You take vitamin D, and so far that supplementation is still pretty cheap, pretty basic. No
Mm-hmm.
one, no one's making a lot out of a vitamin D supplementation alone, but that is one that is just very straightforward. Take it you take it regularly within 3 to 6 months time. You're going to see measurable improvements, and you should be within a normal range, normal blood range, and getting the benefits from that. Um, Other ones are harder to test, just depending on how you're measuring and what you're measuring. I think if we look at omega-3s, for example, so we know that it's a little bit more of an extrapolation. So We know that omega-3s are beneficial for brain health, eye health, helping the body to manage inflammation. The cardiovascular research has fluctuated around omega-3s. About a decade ago, it was thought that omega-3s could help reduce cholesterol, lipid levels, LDL. Now that's not quite as clear, but
Mm,
potentially could it help vessel health? Like there's still a lot of areas where because there's an inflammatory component, we know that it's anti-inflammatory. If disease has an inflammation aspect to it, could omega-3s be helpful? And so that is one that's out there. When taking it's a lower risk as long as you're taking a high quality one. So then it comes that risk to benefit conversation. And so where taking an omega-3, especially at a dose of 12 to 1800 or so milligrams per day, will likely provide some anti-inflammatory benefit, could potentially help with brain and eye health, and is at relatively low risk. And so that's where it becomes more of a risk to benefit association. But it's hard to measure long term because there's so many other factors for, say, heart disease or inflammation that we don't know. Like, oh yeah, if you take omega-3s, for sure, like there's evidence to support you're not going to have a heart attack. Like it's a harder measure on the outcome
mm.
side.
Okay. So I take MHT, menopause
Oh yeah.
hormone therapy, and my doctor, oh, and I also have high cholesterol,
Mm-hmm.
and I take a statin for that. And my doctor recommended CoQ10 as to protect the heart. I don't need you to necessarily diagnose me, or I'm just curious if CoQ10 comes up in your conversations.
It hasn't been recently, but I've been paying attention to from the research side. That's one that's leaning more into, hey, we're getting more and more evidence of its potential benefits around like mitochondrial and cellular function,
Mm,
and um, and the benefit may outweigh any risk again as long as you're using a high
yeah,
quality one.
yeah.
I don't know that there's direct like clinical data on reductions in LDL cholesterol,
I couldn't find anything.
but I think it's like this idea of like, okay, your LDL cholesterol is elevated. Okay, so then let's add in something else that might provide additional support if we can't get that, at the lowest level possible.
Yeah, yeah. And I've been tracking it. I'd be curious to see what happens. I might. It's not very expensive, but I've
Yeah.
really stripped back. I take vitamin D. I take
Okay.
my
Yeah.
B12 if I'm feeling low energy,
Yep.
and then my MHT and my statin.
Mhm.
Do you consider MHT a supplement?
No, that would definitely be medication.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Good.
supplements are like they're defined and they have a supplement facts panel, so they're not well, a protein one could be considered nutrition, but something that's considered like multivitamin or vitamin or minerals, you're going to fall into the supplement category.
Okay. Okay. So thinking about saving money and
Mm-hmm.
just really questioning what you're taking, it sounds like vitamin D
Mm-hmm.
is one. We just talked about the omega-3s. You've talked about magnesium. So
Mm-hmm.
am I getting all of those that kind of like, okay, here's the ones that you should think about, maybe look at, or talk to your doctor, your
Mm-hmm.
provider about them. Am I missing any?
Yeah, and then I would say the multivitamin is
Yeah, that's right.
maybe. The omega-3 vitamin D, magnesium. Calcium could be one for women if you have a significant family history of osteoporosis or you've been diagnosed with osteopenia or osteoporosis. If you can't tolerate dairy or specifically limit dairy foods, it's still best again to get calcium from food, but that's one that having at 500 to 1,000 milligrams per day, split up and if you're going to do 1,000, 500 twice per day, may be a good like addition from a bone health perspective.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, there's the list, people listening. Um, and I share that, and I wanted Stacey to talk about this because this doesn't have to be hard.
Mhm.
And there's evidence out there, and more than anything, listening to your body. And if you are taking those things, is it is it really helping? So
Yeah.
maybe doing some journaling, looking at your labs and your numbers over
Mhm.
time, and just making sure that you're taking them for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to end there. I'm going to have Stasi come back for another one of these conversations. But before we end, I wanted to have Stasi answer one of the questions that I like to ask everybody. And it's really pretty simple. Like right now, Stasi, what hill are you currently dying on?
This is a really good question. I think the right now in our world, and we were talking about social media and the how we can be so disconnected, even though sometimes social media connects things, but disconnected from actual people. And I think right now the hill I'm dying on is more connection, more conversation. Um, and that can sometimes be unpopular in the workplace where I'm the one that's like, more meetings. Like, let's meet and ideally in person, but I think there's the conversation. There's so many tools to no longer have a conversation, and we're losing things there.
Yeah.
And I think there's things that we don't realize we're losing. And I am championing dying on the hill of bring back more connection with
Mhm.
humans.
Yeah. Do you think that your founding of the Novo Collective
Mm.
comes a little bit from that impulse?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and that's the other thing, again, coming back to education and community, the power of shared experience, and listening and like feeling heard and validated, um, is much more powerful when you're in connection with humans on that. I'd say it's even more powerful when you're in physical space, but it
Yeah.
can be done, in a virtual space.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we certainly saw that at Geneva in the
Yeah.
Facebook community
Yeah.
and the women that were coming. And that was one of the earliest places that women with menopause symptoms were gathering.
Mm-hmm.
And, love it or hate those
Mm-hmm.
environments, because there can be a lot of misinformation in there. People were sharing experiences and they were
Yeah.
having empathy for others. They were getting help. So, but the online versus offline, being in person, and especially because you have children, your kids seeing people coming together and talking and discussing and dialoguing, I think is so important these days.
Yep. Yeah, it's something that, and we have to work at it now.
We do. Yeah.
It's easier not to.
Yeah. Like we're doing. So
Yes,
that was
exactly.
the perfect ending to this.
Thanks for creating this opportunity. Always wonderful to talk about these things. I do enjoy it, and I appreciate you getting that information out there.
Yeah, this has been awesome. We will get this summarized and we'll have another conversation very soon.
Sounds great, Britt. Thank you.
Thank you, Stasi. Bye.
Bye.